While assembling my SEPLOS Mason 280L DIY battery kit, I hit a massive problem. I snapped the welded terminal of one of the cells. This was so frustrating because I was very close to powering and testing the kit. After doing some research, I found out that the SEPLOS kit requires all 16 cells in place to operate, so I had to find a solution. I decided to swap the broken cell with a new one. More on the decision process later. In this video, I will show you how to disassemble the kit just enough to replace the damaged cell. I needed to remove cell 16, which is at the top row of the vertical cabinet. Unfortunately, this wasn't going to be easy. All cells in the kit are held tightly in place by compression plates fixed to the cabinet structure. There's a middle one and a top one. I couldn't simply pull out the cell and replace it without removing that tension. I had to remove the top compression plate, but the BMS plate mounted on it prevents easy access. I had to remove the BMS plate. The first challenge was removing the top cover of the cabinet. This is tricky because all ports and terminals of the battery pack are connected to this cover. Some very tight and short cables attached to this cover prevent it from moving freely. Here are the steps to remove the top cover. Disconnect the battery's negative terminal located at the back. This is important because that terminal is fixed to a very short bus bar that connects to the BMS. Gently lift the cover, observing which cables are too short. You will need to unclip those first. The cable running from the PSA board to the balancing board is one of them. After I had the top cover nicely open, I detached all cables from the BMS board and the PSA and PSB boards. I kept all cables clipped to the balancing board and unclipped their other ends. This helped me later with putting the kit back together. We can focus on removing the cell. The BMS plate is attached to the cabinet by 4 screws located underneath it. After removing the BMS plate, I could easily access the top compression plate. 6 screws are holding that plate to the cabinet and pressing down on the cells. Loosen or altogether remove these screws. The PSA and PSB boards mounted directly in front of the cells. In my case, I had to remove the PSB board. This involves undoing many cell terminal connections to free up the cables from that board. I had also used the PS board's mounting channels to run the balancing cables, so I had to undo these too. And that's it. I could pull out the damaged cell with ease. I swapped it with a brand new one. Okay, a few words on why I decided to swap the cell instead of repairing it.
If you have been watching the video up to here, thank you. Consider subscribing to encourage more videos on similar topics.
I found that others have fixed such issues by drilling into the terminals and using helicoils to install replacement screws. This probably works well, but I wanted to explore my replacement options before doing so. I purchased the kit and the cells from Foxstar, a UK-based battery supplier. I reached out and told them about the snap terminal. Their customer service was amazing in handling this. They sent me a replacement cell within days. With such a great option to use a pristine cell and not having enough experience in drilling cells, I decided to go down the replacement route.